Okay, well, hi everyone. Today I'm here with Jake Fay, who's a writer, director, and producer. He's the founder of B Team Inspired Cinema, based out of Lynn, Massachusetts. Um, Jake is a graduate at the University of Hartford Cinemas Department, yay. And he also played for our men's basketball team. And after graduating, he attended the University of the Virgin Islands, where he received a master's in business administration and played basketball. Good for you. Wow, the Virgin Islands, how cool. He also has made a feature directorial debut with his film The Process, which was Best Feature at the Massachusetts Independent Film Festival. So welcome, Jake. Thanks for being here. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So we know we went to school and we know what you studied, but can you tell us a little bit more about like your time at UHart and clubs or things that you were involved with that you enjoyed?
Yeah, definitely. I actually transferred from Fordham. I went to Fordham my freshman year, and transferred kind of for basketball reasons. But I loved my time at UHart. I didn't know really what I was gonna major in. I was thinking about maybe urban studies when I was back at Fordham in New York City. And when I got here, I always loved movies and just meeting the people in the cinema department and some of the students. I knew exactly like that was something that would be just so cool to study and then get into that field. So my time was always mostly spent honestly in the basketball gym and working out and practicing and being with those guys. But it was such a good mix whenever I can just go hang out with, with the film students and just be in a very different world. So that was always cool to kind of balance those two as best as I could. But I really enjoyed my time at Hartford. It was, I have great memories. I have friends for life from there. Actually, we had three, including myself, four University of Hartford film students, alumni work on the process, which was really cool.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah.
Okay. So what courses do you think, do you feel like you took at UHart that helped you the most with what you're doing now?
Well, the good thing about University of Hartford's film school is that you take a lot of theory classes and production classes. So I got to take the theory classes and realize why people are doing what they're doing, and see kind of directors make their strides in their style. And in a German film class, I fell in love with German cinema, which I did not know much about. I've never been, the typical person that's watched every, most famous film. I just watch the movies that I like, whether they're famous or not. So to kind of realize that German cinema was doing stuff that I just really respected, I try to put that in all the films I work on now, is just kind of have that realistic approach to life when you're telling a story. So the German film classes were always really important to me. And then as far as production classes, with Professor Cook, I took producing and directing, which you write a script and then you start to produce it. And at the end of the semester, you have to make that a film. And doing that class, I only took it once, and I wish I could have took it every semester because it's prepared me to make films now as a professional. It shows you exactly how to make a movie, at whether your budget's $10 or whether you had $1 million budget. It really did help me the most, and it made me confident going into any film I make now, is knowing that I did that class. So that class was super important to me, and helped me so much in my career so far.
And I guess that's the next question I had was what kind of class do you wish you could have taken that you think would have helped you the most with what you're doing now?
I would say that class alone, if I could have taken it more times, and I think that I had students, I took it my last semester, my second to last semester in undergrad, and I wish I could have took that, literally once a semester, or at least once a year, just because it made you put every other class together into this one project. And then you could really make a film that you were proud of. Some of the films I made in just cinematography class, whatever, they were good films and I learned so much in it, but the final product was still more of like a workshopped film. Whereas directing or producing, it was really like a thesis film, which is really cool.
Mm-hmm. Very cool. Could you kind of take us through, so since you graduated, what you were doing and the steps you've taken along the way?
Yeah, definitely. So I graduated from Hartford and immediately started my MBA actually at Hartford, and then transferred out to go to school in the Virgin Islands. And I played basketball there, and I kind of forgot about the film. Then I forgot about the film stuff. I was more focused in grad school. And then once I got out of grad school, I actually moved out to Wyoming. And I knew I wanted to make this script that I wrote, and I knew I just needed to save up money. I knew that grants were a way to go, but grants can be very stressful. Anyone that's written a grant before, it's not the funnest experience that you can go through. So I knew I wanted to at least self-fund this at least halfway. So I just started taking odd jobs. I had both my parents were educators, so I had a lot of experience substitute teaching. So when I got to Wyoming, I looked for a job that I know I can get that I can save money for. And I worked as a social emotional behavior program, like behavioral tech in the school district out there. And then I also worked as a line cook part-time just to save as much money as possible. And then I was out there for a year, and I moved back to the Boston area to start table reads and all that for the film. So I just kind of took these odd jobs knowing that I was going to make this film. So I put a lot of my time and effort into just this one film, which was enjoyable. It was cool. It was a unique experience. So I got back and we shot the film October of 2019.
Wow. Okay. And it did well in the film festival circuit. What are you doing with it now?
So I signed a contract with Indie Rights out of LA. They're a distribution company. And so right now we're streaming on Amazon Prime and Tubi TV, and there'll be a few other streaming platforms coming out with the film as well. And then we have Blu-rays and DVDs coming out for the film, hopefully within the next like two to 3 months on Best Buy and Walmart, their online store, which is cool. So kind of just wrapping that up and making sure it's getting out to the widest audience as possible. And then we have some other films in the works right now as well.
So yeah, tell us like what's a day in the life of an independent filmmaker? I mean, first of all, financially, where do you go for your financing, or how does that work if a student wants to graduate and make their own movies? What do you suggest they do?
It depends on where you kind of want to go with the film. For me, I've tried the route of grants, but grants can be tricky, especially, I made a film about local rappers. There's not too many grants to get from that. We're not telling a story of other things where grants sometimes can be really specific for. So for me, I went in the realm of kind of being the workhorse and just saying I'll fund it myself. So I literally worked for like a year and some change and just saved every dollar as possible to go make this film, kind of as just building my own resume and making sure that people knew that I could make a film and then I could work my tail off to be able to do that. So I kind of didn't go that grant route, but now working on a documentary right now, we have taken that grant route a little bit more. And so if you want to make a film, there's always, grants, you can put your own money into it. I wouldn't suggest it after maybe the first film. I don't want to do it ever again. It's a lot of work, but you can do grants. We just did a lot of crowdfunding for this documentary we're working on, which is always good. It was a little tricky because of COVID. You don't want to really be asking people for their money during tough times. But luckily, luckily it was about a local basketball star who he had a lot of friends and family and people that really respected him in the city. So we were able to raise, about a fourth of our goal through crowdfunding, which was nice to see.
Nice, very nice. The industry's changing a lot. It's changed a lot since I was part of the industry. What do you see the changes, and where do you see them headed?
I would say one of the changes I saw, there's a lot of COVID changes, but that's another conversation. But everyone can make a movie now. There are movies out there that people have made, and there's talented people that can make a movie on an iPhone. And I don't want to ever, diss that, but people. It's much easier to make a film, and it can kind of muddy the water. So there's so many films out there. So I see that as trying to separate yourself and still making it in some form of the traditional way, and hiring out post-production and getting a sound designer on and the color correction is on. So you're not making a film that looks super just we made it because we could make it because the camera only cost $2,000. So still trying to separate yourself from that new wave. And there are people that do it really well. There's people that made films for $6,000 or $20,000 that have made millions and millions of dollars. But for the majority of it, there's just a lot more films out there that look at Amazon right now. Like there's so many films to surf through. So I think the best way to go about it in this new realm is just making your film unique, and also kind of putting in a little bit of extra money here and there on post-production or on your cinematographer or something like that to separate yourself from that initial pack that is just making films because it can be cheap.
May I ask, what was the budget for your film?
We were approaching about $100,000.
Okay, wow. You work hard.
So, yeah. So it starts to add up.
If you could start all over again, what would you change about your career?
I would say the biggest thing, and for anyone that is in the film school, when I was in film school, someone was on Zoom and told it to us as well, and I kind of either just didn't listen or I thought I was too busy. But I would make you always have your films to make in class or in any major you're in, but really go out and make as many films as possible in film school because you have the free equipment and you have really talented classmates. And with basketball, it's tough to kind of balance that, but that's just an excuse. I could have made time to make more films, and not just make films in class, but rent that out on the weekends and go shoot a music video for someone or make a goofy comedy thing, but just making film as much as possible and becoming as, even if I'm only writing and producing and directing, you still need to know a lot about equipment, just to kind of be in that conversation. So you kind of have to be a gearhead. Even if you want to do just writing, you still need to know a lot about the technology because it's always changing. And I'm trying to keep up with it, but it is a tricky thing. So definitely just making as many films as possible. I wish I made, 10 films in film school. If I could do one a semester, that wasn't part of any classes, I was just making with films, that's definitely what I would go back and do.
I'm so glad you said that because I tell my students that all the time. I say for every class you're in, production wise, that should be a piece for your reel. It should be, you should work overtime. It's a 3-hour class a week. You should be working 25 hours on that film or on that piece, that project, because it's a piece of your reel. It's a piece of your website, whatever you're going to do. And that's what college is for, to give you these experiences and watch you grow. We talked about that in our class last week. It's like, if you do all your work and it's all the same throughout your college career, then whoever's hiring you doesn't think you can do better. But if you start out and then you go like this, they know you can keep doing better and being more creative. I tell them all the time, creativity and teamwork are the two most important things, right, in filmmaking.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Because we can teach a monkey to run a camera, right? But how do I teach you to be creative and play well with other people, right? Because if you can't work in a team, you can't be in film. You just can't. Yeah. Right.
No, and I left film school with probably my senior thesis film that I was really proud of, and I would show to people when I was hiring, for the process when I was hiring, these seasoned vets, and they believed it and they saw that, but you want to be able to have a really good reel so you don't have to pay someone top notch. You can pay someone, a little bit cheaper because they really believe in what you've already done. And now I find myself, at 26, 27, still building my reel, which we'll always do. But if you can get a pretty good reel, even if you produce someone's film that's really a talented cinematographer in film school, that's still on your producing reel. So it's always important to just get your hand in as many projects. If I, sound mix on someone's film for film school, then I'll have them do the same for me. So really just making as many films as possible and being on set as much as possible. So, you never feel, when you're out of film school, a stranger to be on set. You want to be on set as much as possible.
Yeah. Help out your friends, right?
Yeah.
So what advice do you have to seniors that are going into the workforce come May?
I would say the biggest thing, and it's hard because, with everyone has a certain level of pride. But if you need to take a job that isn't exactly in your field, but allows you to have time to make things that still will get you into that field, I think that's one of the most important things. It is tricky. There's times where you say, I don't want to do that. That's not what I went to school for. I paid all this money for school. I want to stay exactly in that. But if you can't physically get a job in the industry you want to be in, take an odd job that still gives you time to make films or to do different projects to be able to get into that scene. But because I'm a strong believer that if you do those odd jobs, you're going to learn so much more about life. As a behavioral specialist, I learned more empathy than I could ever have learned. And I'll bring that into writing a script, or as a line cook, I'll know what a busier day is to bring that on set and understand. So I think taking odd jobs if you have to. Obviously in a perfect world, you have that internship and then you go right into the perfect job, but that's always kind of tricky. So don't be afraid to take some odd job and still be able to. Don't allow, if you're working 20-hour days, then you can't be creative after that. But if you can still take an odd job, learn some cool stuff, and then still be able to make creative things, and then get in that industry you really want to, that's one of the biggest things.
Yes. And so you have your own film company, but where do students go to look for work outside of the university setting? Are there trade magazines? Are there places they can go to find jobs as a PA, or where should they go looking?
I know New England Film is now, they're changing, I think, ownership, but that's always a good one, especially if you need to cast someone, you need to, get a crew job, but there's always PA opportunities there. So New England Film's a good one to go to. I know people have used Mandy. And the biggest thing is just to get on set a few times and then say, well, I really like the way that actor or behave themselves on set, or they're really talented, and then kind of take them and see what their umbrella is, and then just keep building that way. So once you get on a set, or you find just one film you worked on as a PA or a sound mixer, you'll meet someone else, and then you just kind of combine people's networks. I think that's really important. I casted a girl for my film, and now we're working on a script that I wrote that we're going to shoot in April. So it's really just finding the people you want to work with, and sometimes you can only find those people. An interview is great, but if you already see them on set and like the way that they vibe and they work, that's one of the most important things. So I think battle tested is important. But yeah, if you get on New England Film, just there's different things. It can be tricky, but just getting on set and learning the industry that way, and then making connections to get on set. And that can just happen in film school. Then someone says, "Oh, come work on this for free," or then the next day they'll pay you, and things like that. There's a lot of work, and we'll feed you, and then a week later you might get a paid gig. So don't be afraid to take some of those free gigs. And really just fall in love with the production aspect of film, because that's where you're going to meet the most people, and really branch out.
Yeah, I teach digital media and journalism. I don't teach in the cinema department, but I hear some of my students do, and they're always working together outside. Of somebody who's just graduated brings in two friends, or like you did, right? You brought in your friends who were part of cinema as well. It is all connections, whether it's at the college level or if you're out in Hollywood. It's all about who you know, but who here are people that you grunt work to get to know.
Exactly.
Yeah. Cool. Well, those are the questions I had for you. So now I want to open it up to my students and see, does anyone have any questions for Jake that you would like to ask him? Oh, Patrick, I see your hand is raised. Yes, Patrick, you can turn on your camera.
Cool. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yep. All right. First of all, thanks, Jake, for coming and talking to us. I'm sorry if there's a little background noise. I'm in Commons, and I just came from practice myself. I relate to you a little bit. I'm a lacrosse player here. And I understand that it's tough to find time for other things. But one thing I want to ask you is, you were saying your budget was $100,000, and a larger portion of that money was your own budget. And I want you to kind of explain to me how you believed in yourself so much, because I'm thinking I'm coming out of college and I'm going to live with my parents and I'm going to pay off student loans, and I could never conceive saving that much money or taking out more money to gambling on myself. So that's what I want you to kind of talk about.
Yeah, thanks for that question. It is tricky, and I told myself I would put 50 grand into it, and then you're making it, and the color correctionist is in LA and she costs $9, so it just starts to add up, and sometimes it can get a little out of control. But the biggest thing for me was, and I don't say this in any form of bragging way at all, this is me being very humble, but I was, I didn't have college loans because I played college basketball, and that was a big thing for me, saying people were going to come out, and that entry of there's always that barrier of entry where people just can't physically either save that money or get that money, which I totally understand. So I kind of took that not having college loan thing and said, I'm gonna take advantage of it and allow it to separate myself. So I just kind of worked for that year and a half. And it is tricky. You have to believe in yourself, and it's not always full confidence. And sometimes you wake up in the middle of the night like, what am I doing? But you kind of just have to go with it. And a big thing for me was just telling people what I was going to do, and started doing table reads early on. So there was no way we were going to stop doing this. We were already in motion. But I don't know, maybe it's the athletic background, or maybe it's just me being very ignorant and believing myself. But it was just something I knew I wanted to do. And once that ball got rolling, I wasn't going to stop doing it. It could be a little hitch in my brain. I'm not sure what it was, but I think it's important to believe in yourself and trusting yourself and not be afraid to fail. We've gone into 8 film festivals, but we've got denied by 20. So there's always going to be that balance, and you just kind of have to keep your head on as straight as possible, and just believe in yourself, but also know that it's always not this full belief. There's going to be second guessing, and some days you wonder why I did that. I have friends that are now buying houses and all that, and I'm like, well, I did this, and this is my baby, and hopefully it's a resume builder, and it'll lead to other projects. I hope I answered your question as best as possible.
Yeah, thank you, Jake.
Okay, so now Dominic has a question. Dominic?
Hi, yeah, to Patrick's point, thanks for coming, by the way. Great to have you. I was wondering, obviously, COVID has changed the way that your industry is working a lot, but even before COVID, and however you think after COVID, what has kind of been the balance between like onset things versus, people, if you have someone working in LA or someone working in, Massachusetts where you are, how has that been, getting people from all over, like remote versus in person and that kind of thing?
You're muted.
Okay, so can you hear me now?
Yeah.
So we went into post-production right after we shot. So I think November we're in post-production. So I had my color corrections in LA ready to go. And my plan was to go out there and sit with her while she did it. And then it turned into something that was just completely over Zoom because of COVID. And then my sound designer was in Brooklyn and I met with him right before COVID. But once we got into him actually mixing the film and scoring the film, it was all through phone calls, which it can be a little tricky, but as long as you kind of over communicate, it's okay. We started shooting a feature-length documentary where we actually had to drive down to Memphis. And it is tricky in COVID because, I totally respect that we're in a pandemic and you don't want to, be a spreader by any means. So me and my crew kind of quarantined. It was a really small crew. And we went and did single interviews with people in larger spaces. So you just have to be really accommodate as much as possible. So get a crew that can sacrifice, 10 days or 14 days without doing anything too crazy. And then sit in a car for 20 hours and drive to Memphis and just kind of really have to get creative with it and be safe with it and show people that you're being safe from the jump so they feel comfortable to be on set. But also it's a good time to write. Me and my writing partner right now are working on a feature that we're shooting in April. And we meet, 2 to 3 days a week, either on Zoom or in person, and just write and just get the script as perfect as possible. So then when we can make it in a safer environment, it'll be even better. So just taking the advantage and allowing the confines of COVID to kind of try to make it as best as possible to be a positive thing, which is tricky at times. And I don't always believe it. But you have to kind of keep tricking yourself to believing that it's going to be a positive thing.
Great. Any other questions here? While you guys are thinking, I have one or two. So when you're talking about a feature this summer, God bless, COVID's over. We're all vaccinated and we're all happy. How do you hire your crew? Casting, I understand you do auditions for that. But when you hire your crew, do you only hire people you've worked with and know, or do you try to branch out and find people?
I try to branch out as best as possible. And a big thing, especially with the process, was I got a cinematographer on board, Catherine Castro, who's now shooting for AMC, and she's pretty big time. And I got her on board. And once you get she's a big name in the sense of New England and New York film. People start believing in the project. So then your grips come on board because they want to work with Catherine again. And then you get a gaffer that's worked with Catherine. So you get it's a ball just starts to kind of roll, and then someone that has a good connect with a bunch of PAs. Now you have 10 PAs on set. So it's important to, there's different places to go, but just you gotta do your research and look at people's reels and say, oh, this person makes a beautiful image, but is it right for what the image we want? So really definitely branching out. And then as far as this narrative feature we have right now in the works, is more of a local film where we're getting really talented people to come in to work for very cheap because it's only going to be a 3-day shoot. And so just really being creative with how you get your crew and how you always treat people with respect, because then they might come on and work for cheaper because they'll know then you'll help them down the road. So just really.
I know some college students that would PA for you. So just in case you need somebody.
Absolutely. Yes.
All right. Well, we only have like 8 minutes left on our little Zoom thing here. One more thing, if you guys have a question, chime in and let me know. I tout film festivals all the time. I have a Film Freeway account and I try to get my students I tell them to apply for every free student film festival out there, because why not? It's your connections, the people you meet through them are the next people you work with. What are your thoughts on all that?
Yeah, festivals are great. And I think if they're free, you do them for sure, because and even student films, I mean, it's good because then you're building your resume and you can always put, I was in this film festival, or it's just really good practice to get as many film festivals as possible. What's been weird with COVID is we've gone to so many festivals all over the world, and you sit at home and it's a Zoom call. So that's been interesting. You don't really get to network as much as possible. Usually festivals are great because you go there and you get to really network with people. But yeah, if you have a student film or a student project and there's a festival for it, especially if it's free or if it's $11, it could be worth it for sure.
The student ones tend to be either free or fairly inexpensive.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that. That's really great. New Haven does a big one too for students that I try to get my students to get involved with. Okay, so does anyone have any other questions for Jake? No, well, Jake, thank you so much. We really appreciate you talking to us. This is very
Definitely.
nice of you on a Friday afternoon.
Yeah.
I wish you the best of luck in your work. Please keep in touch. And again, if you need PAs or anything for your summer, hopefully we'll be out of masks and able to accommodate you with some students to work with you. Okay?
Definitely. Thank you so much for having me. And anyone that's on the Zoom still, go watch the process on Amazon or Tubi TV and write us a review and let us know what you think.
There you go.
I'll totally do
Super.
that.
Yes. Yes. Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you guys.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Have a good one. Bye.